Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dychronic, your host here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we'll be taking a look at the Xur, his location, his random rolls, and my recommendations for May 21st, 2021. You can find the Xur in his regular location in the tower. Just make your way into the top left section of the hangar. You can find him right next to the end of this railing. This is a high overview in case this is all you cared about. First up today for the weapon, we have the Monte Carlo, a weapon that I would just say as a blanket statement I would recommend, which fits in a lot of different builds, because dealing damage with this weapon reduces your melee cooldown, which, by the way, dealing damage is so simple and so scalable, and grants a chance to fully charge your melee on each kill, which that part is pretty cool. But just doing damage, like one clip into a boss, will give you a full melee, and that's pretty freaking awesome. And with that, there's also the other trait, which is actually like Swashbuckler and Grave Robber in one perk as well, on top of also having high caliber rounds and being a 600 auto, which is currently one of the better archetypes of auto rifles for both PvE and PvP, of which, again, this weapon can be used and is good in both modes, again, because you can get your melees really quick. And have I mentioned Shuriken and the Warlock melees being really good in the Crucible? Overall, if you don't have this weapon, get it. It's fun, it's extremely useful, and it's very versatile. Up next for the Hunter exotic, we have the Gemini Jester. If you've never heard of it, dodging disorients nearby enemies and temporarily removes the radar. So in PvP, you get like a flash effect on your screen, which goes away quite quickly, and then you don't have your radar for maybe like 3 to 5 seconds. The issue with this exotic is that it forces your enemies to play very lame. If you get flashed and you don't have a radar, usually you just put your butt in a corner. You don't want your enemies to do that. Although technically you could do this every 11 seconds because of your really quick dodge timer. So it really is up to you if you really like this. As far as your roll goes, you'd like to see a lot of mobility and recovery, and it has a decent amount of both. However, the total stats is not as high as I'd want it to be. It's a pretty decent roll. Although I wouldn't really recommend it. Doesn't really feel like it has a place. Up next for the Titan exotics, probably the best thing on offer today, we have the Dune Marchers. Now, these things on paper don't seem that crazy, but they're definitely a top 3 PvP exotic. Maybe even like number 1, I forget. For Titans, that is. And if you've never heard of it, increases the sprint speed, which generally high mobility is always a good thing, and sprinting builds up a static charge, which after melee attacking enemy, that charge will chain nearby enemies. Which is a fun fact, you can actually sprint for a while, build up that charge, and then stop sprinting. It's not like shoulder charge. You have it literally on your hand until you melee. And whenever you do melee an enemy, it goes like 10-15 meters from that enemy, shocking to the next enemy, 10-15 meters to the next enemy, and also chains off of dead ghosts, which is kind of ridiculous. In other words, if you get that melee off, you get the kill on the dude, you're hitting everybody, stunning everybody, and potentially killing and damaging everybody. In the PvE side of things, the faster sprint is useful, and stunning enemies with your melee attack is useful, but it is melee based and quite dangerous in the higher level. As far as your roll goes, you like to see a lot of recovery, mobility, and strength. You do have recovery, but the other ones are a bit lacking. The total is also a bit low. But overall, a fine roll if you don't have any. And it does have an ornament. Alright, I do like it in red. Although the booty action here could use a little bit of work. And finally, for the Warlock exotic today, we have the Astrocyte Verse, one of those higher skill floor, higher skill ceiling exotics that I think are a bit underrated by a lot of people. If you've never heard of it, you blink further and more frequently, and your weapon's ready quickly out of blink, and radar remains up, basically solving every single issue or problem that blink has. The main issue with blink is that it is dependent on being void, and void is not really that strong in the current meta. And even when void was really strong, it was based on a lot of other things, like Controverse Hold, Nezrek's Sin, Darham Kara. It was never about the blink. As far as your roll goes, you like to see a lot of mobility, recovery, and strength. It does have mobility and strength, but the recovery is a bit lacking. However, you could compensate with a lot of other things, especially considering Warlocks generally get more recovery here. And the total stats of 66 is quite high, and high resilience in the Crucible is also really nice with stasis, so I'd say it's a pretty great roll for a pretty good exotic. Outside of that, make sure you're picking up your exotic Cypher quest. If you don't know, you can get progress on Strikes and Crucible and Gambit, and you just get a free exotic Cypher at the very end from the Xur, so you should always pick it up on every character, and that's it's free stuff. On top of that, I would also recommend picking up the exotic engrams. If you have some leftover legendary shards, this is guaranteed to give you an exotic you've never received, and it's a higher stat roll. Unfortunately, that's not an exotic that I'm really a big fan of, but look, it's a high stat roll, and wow, look, it's so cool. Yeah, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It's okay, you move on. And of course, make sure you come check out the live streams that I have right after these videos, as well as all the times on screen right now. Twitch.tv/Dychronic. We're doing a lot of open lobbies, especially with Vaults of Glass coming out tomorrow. Make sure you come by, hang out. We do a lot of different things, and oftentimes, again, open lobby. And of course, a big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Without their help, I wouldn't be able to do as many videos as I do, especially wouldn't be able to do the spreadsheets. Specifically, I want to give a big thank you to Mediwudu, Mom, Dad, Charles Williams, Dr. Strange, Joe Smith, Monday, Nettle Halpins, Steve Bachman, Justin Rare, Raymond Sherman, Yuta Panther, Cole Sherm, Casey Reagan, and Badgie for their support on Patreon. And that's the end of it. My name is Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.